Hello everyone, my name is Samantha and I am with Empower Multimedia. We post content regarding business, academia, and entrepreneurship. Today we're going to be talking about the stimulus check for dependents and an update on that. Just as a reminder, this video is strictly informational and not advice. Now let's get into it. So if we look back at the first two stimulus checks, you may remember that there was a group of people who were excluded from receiving the checks. And these people are ones that are claimed as dependents age 17 and older. So today we're going to be looking at how this group works in the upcoming stimulus check and if they will be included. With this third round of stimulus checks, these dependents age 17 and older could become eligible. But this is provided that the House of Representatives proposal is approved by the Senate. The legislation is expected to be finalized in mid-March. According to CNBC, the previous estimate from the American Enterprise Institute has indicated that expanding the stimulus payments to adult dependents could make as many as 26 million people more eligible for the money. That would generally cover college students as well as adults with disabilities who may have been claimed by a caretaker. This new bill will likely require adult dependents to coordinate with those who claim them and who will therefore receive the money. Nevertheless, however, this can be an improvement from the previous payments. A lot of people in this dependent group think that they would really benefit from receiving a stimulus check. One example is Austin Gorgon. He's 20 years old and a student at Oregon State University. Last year, he started a Change.org petition when he realized that the first $1,200 stimulus checks would exclude those like him and his peers who have been claimed as dependents. His petition earned almost 5,000 signatures, but still the second $600 stimulus checks authorized by Congress in December continued to exclude individuals in that cohort, despite some calls on both sides of the aisle to change those terms. The following information is from cnet.com. Let's consider how the new stimulus check would change who counts as a dependent. So for the first and second stimulus checks, qualified dependents were defined as anyone age 16 or younger. And now let's look at how the first two checks compare with the third. Each dependent counted toward a flat rate in the family total, with no cap on the number of child dependents claimed. That rate was $500 for the first check, approved in March, and $600 for the second, which was approved and sent in December. The latest proposal would earmark an additional $1,400 per child dependent to be added onto the checks of their parents or guardians. Now, for the first time, 17-year-olds and adult dependents who is anyone 18 or older would also be eligible for a payment as part of the plan. Furthermore, in addition to opening up the definition of a dependent to all ages, Biden's $1,400 stimulus check proposal also seeks to include all mixed-status families. This could potentially mean that the families with non-citizen parents but U.S. citizen children would be eligible for stimulus money as well. For the second check, families with one citizen parent could receive a payment, whereas the first stimulus check blocked all families with one non-citizen spouse if they filed jointly, even if they claimed a U.S. citizen as a dependent. The same restriction applied to a non-citizen head of household who claimed a U.S. citizen child as part of the previous tax return. Let's consider all the ways your dependents could affect the family total. So dependents don't receive their own stimulus checks, but they can add funds to the household's total. Children 16 years and younger who you claimed in your last tax filing added a flat rate of $600 to the household's second check. That's $100 more per dependent than in the first round of payments. The total amount of money allocated in any of the three stimulus payments would depend on your adjusted gross income, which you can also find on your taxes. If the current proposal becomes law, a third stimulus check could add an extra $1,400 per dependent of any age to the household's total. It seems likely that the new stimulus funds will be targeted to families with a certain income threshold. The way that the stimulus check formula currently stands, the amount you get may not be as simple as adding up everyone in your household, and that's because of the adjusted gross income threshold. But in a change this time, dependents would not bring some families a partial payment. In terms of federal tax regulations, a dependent can fall into two categories. One is a qualifying child, and two, a qualifying relative. They don't need to be children or directly related to you, but they do have to meet certain requirements set out by the IRS. To be claimed as a dependent on your taxes, a qualifying child must be either younger than 19 years old or a student younger than 24 years old at the end of the calendar year. If, however, your child is what the IRS calls permanently and totally disabled, then you can claim them as a dependent no matter their age. To claim a qualifying relative, either a child or an adult, as a dependent, they must meet other IRS criteria. This may include an elderly relative who relies on you for care. Even if a dependent was claimed on your tax return, only people who meet a specific definition of child dependent were eligible to count toward the household money from that first round of stimulus checks due to the requirements of the CARES Act. The same was true for the second round under the December $900 billion law. The child dependent must be age 16 or under as of your 2019 tax return to qualify for any payment. However, as mentioned, the current proposal under consideration for a third check would make dependents of all ages, including young adults and older adults, eligible to add up to $1,400 to each household's total. Now we can look at some questions that you may be having. So for example, what happens if I have more dependents now than I did last time I filed my taxes? If a child was born or adopted into your family in 2020 and therefore not listed on your 2019 tax return, you can claim your child on your 2020 tax return to get the $500 dependent stimulus payment from the CARES Act or the $600 payment from the new bill sometime in 2021. Now, what if my spouse and I share custody of a dependent but don't file our taxes together? In this case, a child can still only be claimed as a dependent on one tax return in a tax year. How will it work if I'm divorced or legally separated but split custody of a child? And here's where things can get a little confusing. A child can only be claimed as a dependent by one taxpayer for a tax year. Typically, the child counts as the dependent of the custodial parent, the parent who the child lived with for a longer period of time during the year, even if financial support came from the other parent. However, this isn't always the case. One case that has cropped up with the first check has been parents who aren't married and have joint custody and alternate years in which they claim the dependent on their tax returns. And in this case, both parents were eligible under the CARES Act to receive up to $500 per child for a total of up to $1,000 per child between them both. Now here's how that works. If you're a parent who didn't claim your child on your 2019 return, when you file your 2020 tax return, you may be able to claim up to an additional $500 per child on that return if you qualify to claim the child as your qualifying dependent for 2020. So the bottom line is a parent with 50-50 custody of one or more children who didn't receive a $500 payment per child as part of the stimulus package can get that money along with their tax refund after filing 2020 taxes in 2021, regardless of whether or not the other parent received that payment for the same children in the first round of checks. Because these payments are essentially tax credits, they don't have to be repaid to the IRS, even if both, again, not married to each other. This is all information based on previous stimulus check payments, and we don't know if these rules will change with the third stimulus check yet. I hope that cleared up any questions you had about the dependents on the new stimulus check. This concludes the video. Make sure you check back with Empower Multimedia for all of your business, academia, and entrepreneurship concerns. If you have any questions, comments, or video recommendations, please comment below. Also remember to like and subscribe.